Hello world, my name is Batman and this is
Robin,
and we are
crime fighters internationally.
International crime fighters, and in the news for the last year we've been hearing about this horrible travesty that's happening on the other side of the globe to our brothers and sisters.
The invasion of an independent country, a war of aggression, a war of choice by the international criminal Putin, who has now been declared by the International Criminal Court to committing crimes against humanity.
In addition to just destroying entire neighborhoods, he's being accused of kidnapping children.
16,000 at least.
Children.
Children, and that is the ones they can verify. Now, you and I were just on a Zoom with people in Ukraine, teaching them better how they can get the forensic evidence that they need in order to prove these things.
Right.
Because it's hard to prove. When you prove 16,000, there's probably really 30,000 crimes.
Right, right. Now, there seem to be a lot of Putin apologists out there that are spreading disinformation out there. So we're going to start with one lie that seems to be repeated, is that it was a bloody coup by the U.S. that started the whole thing. And that is totally false, because in February of 2014,
there was an election, but it was a corrupt election, and people went out in the street. Now, what really got them out in the street was that the guy, Viktor Yanukovych, who was a Russian puppet, he changed his mind. He had promised, like we've had people promise in our country that became elected president and went back on their promises, but this was much worse. This was a whole thing that would destroy Ukraine's ability to maybe join the West, become more cultured, become a better economy. They wanted
a free trade with the European Union.
Yes.
And then once he got in office,
he backed out of it, broke his promise.
Right, and he upset millions of Ukrainians, so they flooded the streets in protest.
Millions.
And this became known as the
Revolution of Dignity.
Revolution of Dignity. That's what the Ukrainian people call it. However, the Putin apologists over here in their nice, comfortable homes and offices like to call it the bloody coup by the U.S. Now, were there Americans there? I'm sure there were some from the embassy that were applauding and were encouraging, but it was millions of who?
It was actually citizens
of Ukraine.
It was Ukrainians that said we're not going to take this anymore.
Right,
it was a term from Network.
And this dictator,
Yanukovych.
Yes, he ordered his secret police to open fire.
They shot 100 people at least.
Over 100 protesters
probably
were killed.
300 wounded. Yeah.
And what did that do? That just got.
Well, we would hope in this country, we had a lot of protests not too long ago, and if we'd have had 100 people killed, wouldn't we be pissed off? Wouldn't we want to get rid of the criminal that did that?
Right. So chaos ensued, and there were things just got out of hand, and the Ukrainian parliament voted to impeach him.
They impeached Yanukovych.
And then he fled to Russia.
Yeah.
So they didn't have a leader.
So what happened is that Putin actually took over Crimea at the time. There was chaos going on.
Well, he used that opportunity.
It was a very distraction. There was a person named Yulia Tymoshenko who was released from prison.
Right.
At that time, and
he put her in prison originally.
Yeah, right. It's very complicated, but the important thing is that there was a genuine impeachment that took place that was a legal impeachment. Now, we had impeachment in our country. We've had two of them recently, but the person who was impeached for the crimes he did, he wasn't actually convicted. But in this case, this person, Yanukovych, was actually removed from office legally.
And at the same time, pro-Russian insurgents in the east, in the Donbass region, began to uprise.
They were trying to. It would be like if Texas was trying to get away.
Well,
from
it's like we had an insurgency here in the South during the Civil War.
We had
right, and so the Ukrainian military went there to put that insurgency out, and then Putin used that as an excuse to take Crimea. And many say that
it was a chaotic period, but the bottom line is that the people of Ukraine kicked out a corrupt dictator, or a would-be dictator. And they did just what we would hope our people would do if it came to that position. But there was an acting president for 115 days, and then there was a genuine election.
Yeah, and the acting president, I believe his name was...
Turchinov.
Right, okay, and 115 days. And then from February of 2014 to June 7th of 2014...
there was a real election. Petro Poroshenko
became
the president.
So now that was all done democratically.
That was done democratically.
There was no coup,
coup at all.
Which is being there. Now,
there was what they called the Revolution of Dignity, which was the protests in the street that caused Yanuchenko.
And it was his reversal to go with Putin instead of his campaign pledge of a better association and friendship with the rest of Europe. With the EU. So yeah, and then it just escalated when he opened fire on the protesters. So now let's skip to the next disinformation that's out there, is that they keep saying that it's the NATO expansion caused this. Well, let me clarify. After in when did the Berlin Wall fall?
Berlin Wall fell in 1989. And then in 1991, there was an actual coup in Russia, where it was still the Soviet Union, but they kicked out Gorbachev. Now, Gorbachev was the leader that actually...
He was the good guy.
He did liberal reforms in Russia.
Right.
Actually, sometimes credited with having saved the world. Yes. It led to the end of the Cold War at that time.
Right. So he was actually a good guy for the Soviet Union.
And he was revered in the West, but not so much in Russia, which is a shame. But along came Yeltsin, and Russia became a democracy temporarily. And they actually were Russia was asked that maybe if they wanted to join NATO, but they refused.
Well, that could have been a dream, and then there would be no need for a big military buildup anywhere in Europe, because we would just be one united continent. But that's fell by the wayside. Now, the reason I bring that up is that shortly after the Soviet Union disintegrated and the Berlin Wall fell, nation by nation declared their independence.
They were made independent. There was a legal thing that happened.
Yeah.
And what happened with Ukraine was a special case. Ukraine had all of these missiles and bombs, nuclear bombs, that were Soviet made, but they were in Ukraine, and Ukraine would have had a perfect right to keep holding on to them. Now, it's true the West gave them some incentives, but it was a small incentive. It's something like...
Well, you're jumping to Boris Yeltsin.
I'm jumping over
But I'm not done with Gorbachev.
Okay. Well, Gorbachev supposedly had a verbal agreement that NATO wouldn't expand, but it really only referred to Germany.
To East Germany.
East Germany. And
it said nothing about...
Well, it said nothing about Poland or Lithuania.
Or Estonia or Latvia.
Or certainly Ukraine.
Yeah, or Ukraine, right.
And what I was getting at, Batman, was that Ukraine had a guarantee that they would not be invaded.
The Budapest Memorandum.
It's called the Budapest Memorandum, and it was signed by Bill Clinton, our president, and it's a binding agreement on the United States. However you want to parse words.
That Russia would not invade Ukraine.
Both Russia... The United States certainly would not invade, but also the United States and the UK, England was involved with this too, that they would come to the aid of Ukraine if it was ever invaded. Ukraine gave up those nuclear weapons. They wanted peace. They wanted to show that they were a peaceful member of the community of nations. They did the right thing. They did a decent thing. And look what it's done for them. No good deed goes unpunished. Hey, Batman, as we found out many times ourselves. But Ukraine is entitled to the defense of its borders, all of its borders. It's entitled to the defense of its sovereignty, because the United States, certainly Russia...
Well, there was no agreement to not expand, is what I was getting at.
There was no agreement on NATO's part not to expand.
That rhetoric was taken out of the agreement with Gorbachev to reunite East Germany with West Germany, and that it basically made it clear that Germany would not expand eastward anymore. The borders were set. That's it. No more Germany doing what it did before in World War II. So now many of the Putin apologists like to run with the NATO expansion excuse, which is just absurd. It's almost like blaming the neighborhood watch group for what the bully did. because NATO kind of was a neighborhood watch group. Only we didn't think there would be we really didn't think there would be a war in Europe in 2022. None of us thought that.
We thought we put that behind, the inhumanity and the brutality of World War II. We fought in that war to prevent that from happening again, and here it has come back.
Well, now let's just take one nation that joined NATO after Germany was reunited.
Poland?
Poland would be the best example because, why would Poland want to join on NATO? Why do you think?
I think Poland was hit by an invasion from both ways.
Both sides.
If you have not had this in school, then be aware that Poland was devastated by invasions by Germany on one side and the Soviet Union on the other in 1939.
The statistics will go back and forth. They really never came up with definite numbers, but it's in the general range of 2.5 million non-Jewish. These are mostly Catholic Poles. 2.5 million were butchered by the Nazis, and 3 million were butchered by the Soviets.
So why wouldn't Poland fear the Soviets?
Well, gee, let's see. Why would you think that, huh? Well, maybe the same reason that they didn't like having their country occupied all the way till 1993 by Soviet-Russian troops, and maybe also the same reason that the Soviet Russians kidnapped 1.7 million ethnic Poles and sent them to the slave labor camps of the Siberian Gulag. And all of this happened not too long ago, within 2 generations of our lifetime.
Many people remember that.
Yeah, our parents' lifetime at least. So
exactly.
So joining NATO is basically a nation's own right to determine its own destiny. NATO doesn't decide for Poland or Lithuania or any of those countries. It's those countries have to request membership.
They asked to member.
The U.S., NATO, neither have a say in whether or not Poland would request or Lithuania would request membership. So that's absurd argument there. Again, I say that that's about as dumb as blaming the neighborhood watch group for what the bully on the block did.
Every nation is entitled to form alliances to protect themselves.
Right.
This is self-defense.
Right.
It's a guaranteed right.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that seems to get thrown around. Now, if Putin wants to make that case and the apologists want to make that case, then I suggest Russia invade Finland before they join, because they're almost about to join, right? So he better hurry up and invade Finland, right? Right? That's the logic.
You're showing the absurdist part of that, aren't you? Because Russia would be forever having to invade any country all the time.
Yeah.
And they'd have a perfect excuse. Well, they might join NATO. My goodness, we have to invade every country around us. Well, aren't the countries that did join NATO lucky that they did, because at least they're protected by that agreement that Putin supposedly won't invade them.
And it is kind of absurd to blame what another country is doing when you're invading a different country that has nothing to do with that country. So we're going to invade Ukraine, who isn't a NATO member, because Poland joined NATO.
I think that Putin just saw the a way to go to try to do a land grab, and he has this crazy idea.
And he's gotten away. We didn't do enough when he went into Georgia, when he went into Chechnya, when he bombed the crap out of Syria.
Unfortunately, we didn't do much, and we didn't do much when he took over
Crimea. Yeah.
So this is the problem of enabling dictators. It's what Chamberlain did in 1938, if you remember your history.
Right. And another thing I hear is whataboutism. Well, this isn't Vietnam. This isn't Iraq. This isn't Afghanistan. This is Ukraine.
The closest thing is when we got an international agreement to kick Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, an independent country which he had invaded. That's the closest analogy.
Even that is a wider story, but let's not go there now.
Let's not do to what is about. Let's do what is wrong now. Well, Putin is a war criminal.
At the present time, we have a very serious situation developing in Ukraine, because not only is this the defense of the innocent people of Ukraine, but this is the defense of democracy throughout the world abroad. We cannot allow a nation in Europe to attack and just destroy another nation in Europe.
That would be a terrible precedent to set
Yes.
in the 21st century. We thought we'd done away with that.
We thought
from the 20s,
yes,
you know?
we thought that after World War
Also,
II.
if Ukraine is destroyed and overrun, what's to stop China? They will do what they
Taiwan.
want to Taiwan.
Yeah.
So we, as a country, not only is our honor, our sacred honor at stake, that we guaranteed the sovereignty of Ukraine. We guaranteed we'd come to their aid.
Now, I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, and I'm very, very upset with Roger Waters being a Putin apologist. I don't want to say too much about that because it hurts me to talk about it, just to think about it. At least for now, he's made statements where he thought Putin had a good beef and that they were backing up to NATO was up to his doorstep. Well, okay, Roger. Roger says we should negotiate, and all these Putin apologists, these other ones, say we should negotiate. Well, okay. A home invader knocks down your door and rapes your daughter, then kills your daughter, takes the $5,000 you had stashed under your mattress, then sets your house on fire. Now, explain to me how you would negotiate with that home invader.
Well,
Roger, I'm talking to you. You tell me how you would negotiate with that home invader. Roger, in his $1 million studio, in his $1 million neighborhood, I think he lives in USA now.
Okay,
but
enough about that guy. He's crazy.
Yeah,
but
anybody that's
if you think that you're going to negotiate with somebody that's squatting in your house, they've stolen half your house, and like
killed
you
your
said,
family,
maybe killed half your family, you're going to negotiate with them. At least they'd have to leave your house, for crying out loud.
they have to leave the house, right?
and make
stop
make
setting
reparations.
Stop setting my house on fire.
Well, exactly. Stop the killing, for God's sakes. It may not even be possible, but
as we speak,
to say that we should negotiate, or that Ukraine should negotiate under the current situation,
he needs to stop bombing first.
It's just crazy. It's just inhumane. It's just wrong.
The missiles need to stop falling.
Exactly.
The bullets need to stop flying. And these are Russian bullets. These are Russian missiles. The Ukrainian bullets are defensive bullets.
Well, they are defending their homeland, and they're defending their people, and they're defending democracy. And we should help them as much as possible. Even our allies should help. This is a bone I picked, and you've agreed with me, Batman. Thank you. That Iron Dome should be supplied.
Right.
You know, that would take Israeli support to do that.
With all the money we send to Israel.
They're supposedly our allies, and not only that, but
how much money we sent to Israel?
Well, it's at least $5 billion.